We were driving down this road and she says, "Look, that's the dismemberment factory." They caught her, they hung her from a tree, and she remained suspended there for several days. That was their method of punishment.
People right now, at this very minute, not far from Thailand's borders, where we love to vacation, there are territories where hundreds of thousands of people from around the world are held as slaves. And for any escape attempt, they're tortured. Much like what was shown in the series Narcos.
Daily, they might be left in the jail for several weeks. They're not given food for many, many days or water. Perhaps if they ask during that time for water, one of the soldiers will urinate in a cup and make them drink it. There's no other form of sustenance that they're given. They're just beaten, they're tasered.
They build entire settlements across vast areas with barred windows, armed guards, and huge perimeter fences. Each year, the number of slaves increases, and today there are presumably more than 200,000 people there. It's basically a normal city.
There's dismemberment, prostitution. It's basically the most horrific place in life.
The area at the borders between Thailand, Laos, and Myanmar is called the Golden Triangle. In the mid-20th century, one of the world's largest networks for producing and selling illegal substances spread there. Power in this territory doesn't belong to governments. Syndicates rule there. These criminals recently began building entire villages where they settle people kidnapped from all over the world. They're promised salaries of 500,000 rubles monthly for some trivial work, but when they arrive in Thailand expecting paradise and beautiful islands, they're forcibly taken to the Golden Triangle. Their documents seized and forced to scam others online. Scamming is essentially a money-making scheme. Click a link, deposit money, wait for profits. These call center slaves may work 15 to 17 hours daily. They sleep wherever possible and are fed just enough to keep working. And there's virtually no escape from this system. People can be trapped there for years. If someone tries to escape and gets caught or performs poorly, they're drugged, thrown in internal prison, or sold to worse scam centers. This whole chain ultimately ends in murder. A slave might be sold for organs and their body simply burned. People, this has been one of the most difficult episodes for our team recently. Everyone familiar with this topic was hanging up calls, blocking phones, and refusing to talk because they feared for their lives. Nevertheless, today we'll explain how 21st century slavery works, who runs it all, and how much money circulates in this business. Today we'll be diving into this horrific mess together with you. This Monday, news broke that Myanmar troops freed captives from a scam center on the Thai border. Russians were among those held there. The story of Vera Kravtsova from Belarus, who ended up in a Myanmar scam center last week, made headlines worldwide. She was lured into slavery, sold for her organs, and her body was burned. The girl's parents still haven't received any proof of their daughter's death. But here's what we know for certain. Vera found a modeling job opportunity somewhere online in Thailand. In mid-September, she flew to Bangkok and a few days later moved to Myanmar, where she fell into scam slavery in the Golden Triangle. Until October 4th, she was still in contact with her family. Then, unknown people contacted them claiming Vera was dead and offered to sell them their own daughter's body for $500,000. A few days later, they were told that Vera's body had been cremated. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about this, because I realize all of this could still be part of a scam. It's possible the criminals are continuing to manipulate Vera's parents.
I recall one of them saying to me at some point, "Want us to fake your death? You could stay with us forever and make a lot of money."
This is Daria Tuzova, who spent about 6 months in the Golden Triangle call center. She was a slave like the others, with one difference. She wasn't physically abused. She actually became a model for the scammers, and her appearance was important in her work. But this raises a logical question. What the hell kind of model works at a scam call center, right? To understand, let's break down the standard scam operation. The victims are typically men from Europe or America. They get messages from a beautiful girl on social media or dating apps. She has attractive photos and starts flirting with them. The victim engages, suspecting nothing unusual. The guy falls for the girl and begins to trust her. But it's not actually a girl writing to them, it's a scammer. A reluctant scammer sitting in a stuffy room with hundreds of others just like him. This text scammer targets men from Europe and America. But eventually, a guy will ask the girl to connect, to see her, to confirm he's actually chatting with a real woman. That's when they bring in a model who video calls him and chats sweetly. Then this girl starts messaging him. Let me come visit you. Listen, could you please buy me a ticket, preferably business class? Or better yet, I'll buy it myself. My mom is sick here and my sister needs help too. Could you send me a little money? He sends some once, twice, 3 times. After some time passes, this beauty's profile gets deleted and the money can't be recovered. The model doesn't hunt victims, chat, or demand money. She just verifies her identity.
They're scamming a large number of people. For example, using my photos, they've conned over 10,000 people. And that's just in a short time, a brief period. Over a longer time frame, they operate across many countries.
Thousands of people from different countries believed it was actually Daria. They sent money based on what they thought was her recommendation. And it's absolutely certain they don't understand that this girl from the photo never even personally corresponded with them. Imagine what would happen if one of them met her on the street. At minimum, the situation would end up at a police station.
At some point, it becomes dangerous to leave that territory. They all hide there because they're criminals. They basically turn these models into accomplices.
And when the model starts to realize that going out in public might be dangerous, they offer her to fake her own death for all her friends and family. This benefits the criminals. First, the person loses all connections with loved ones, so nobody will search for them. Second, they immediately fall completely under their control and can be subjected to absolutely anything. The world still believes they're already dead.
And those who agree, I don't know what will happen to them later. It's dangerous in any case.
Whether Vera Kravtsova was actually killed remains unknown. Only she herself can prove otherwise if she manages to escape successfully. But there are many Russian-speaking people there right now. This is what the experts say.
The vast majority of employees there will be CIS citizens. So, speaking specifically about Russia, we can definitely talk about hundreds of Russian citizens. If we consider Russian speakers from the CIS thousands, there will be several thousand.
Arena is a coordinator for the alternative movement. They help free people from slavery, and by their estimates, the number of slaves is only growing. If in 2023 there were about 120,000, now it's reaching 250,000. Calculating the exact number is impossible.
With the number of traffic victims that have gone into the scam compounds in our region, which are estimated just for our border alone on the Thailand-Myanmar border, about 200,000 people having crossed the borders since 2021-2022.
Tanya is a member of a volunteer movement that helps people escape from there. Even the volunteers don't know the exact number of people in these centers. Look, this is a photograph of one of these camps from 1922. The image shows a fairly large settlement with about 30 low but long buildings and around 50 smaller structures packed closely together. This entire complex is well guarded and surrounded by a fence. It's called Kaka Park. This is one of the most notorious scam centers housing slaves. Here the roofs look more like industrial hangars. Now look at how this same area appeared just 1 year later. By 1923, the complex had expanded significantly. It's essentially a small city behind a fence now. Construction never stops there. The number of buildings has doubled. There are many typical 5-story structures here. They're all built very close to each other. Here's a photo from another scam park, Shui Koko, showing the center and some construction in the distance. On the right, See what looks like a decent building, but zoom in and you'll notice bars on balconies and an incredible amount of laundry hanging everywhere. The building on the left resembles a typical urban business center. Zoom in and you can see bars behind the glass. And it's the same on every building. None of this is coincidental. Anyone attempting to escape faces extremely severe punishment.
So I have seen one case, a Chinese young man who escaped from the scam compound. He was cut by his calf, calf, right? His leg, under the knee. He was cut very brutally. And they dropped him, whoever on Myanmar side, dropped him on the river. He dropped him there, waiting him to die. But someone rescued him, take him to Thai side and took him to the hospital. He went on operations for replacing the muscle that had been cut off from his calf.
Kanikar is a journalist. She investigates scam slavery in Asia, confirming that the number of victims grows yearly as these scam operations expand their territories. Let's examine how people end up there. First, they need to get the victim to fly to Bangkok. Look at this typical scammer job posting. Video model needed for a Chinese crypto company. Sounds attractive, right? The duties? Just answer messenger calls and chat about everyday topics. Perfect. A dream job truly. Let's continue. For some reason, you must work night shifts. Strange, but whatever. During a 10-hour shift, you'll handle 5 to 10 calls. The rest of the time, you're free to do your own thing, like paint your nails. For this hard work, they offer around $4,000. Not bad, right? Especially for Thailand. Plus, they cover accommodation, meals, even flights. My goodness, what sweethearts. Quite charming, isn't it? Too bad the contract is only for 6 months. When I see these messages, sometimes even in random comments, I always think, does anyone actually believe this?
I was just browsing, looking through Telegram channels. There's a chat with job openings in Asia, specifically in Vietnam. Nothing particularly interesting except one offer that said, work in Asia, salary from $5,000 monthly, everything legal, and basically no further details. Oh, and they specified the job was only for women. Naturally, my first thought was probably something related to, I don't know, webcam work, adult content, or something like that. But curiosity got the better of me, so I messaged this account directly and received the following offer.
Medina worked at a Russian beauty salon in Vietnam and decided to find a more profitable job, still in Asia. There were many job openings, but most didn't pay what she wanted. But look at this one. The conditions are absolutely amazing. Having doubts? The chat groups are filled with glowing reviews.
Yes, everything's fine, everything's great. The job situation is all good, I have no problems with it. The company is good, the team is good too. This is the office. If there's a video call, they bring me a phone. I talk to the investor for 2 or 3 minutes. Hi, how are you? What are you doing? How are you feeling? How was your work day? Did you eat dinner or not? What are your plans? That's it. And then I say I need to go. I'm busy. I didn't agree right away. It took several days. I called girls who already work this way. One was an HR manager, another's been doing it for years. Everything was fine with her. I listened to what the job entails. And I thought, well, okay, I don't see anything wrong with it. The girls there are doing fine. They're Russian speaking.
Those are often curtained in the photos. And here, for example, no one even hides the bars on the windows. But if you don't look at the details, everything seems perfect. Some inconveniences are even mentioned for authenticity.
The only issue is infrastructure. There's almost nothing here. Face cream is hard to find. You have to grab it when you can. Shampoo variety is non-existent. Today I went looking for water. The store ran out of small bottles.
but overall, everything's fine. This is the office.
It's like paradise, except here they actually pay you. Look at these rooms for the models. Remember how they protect models and create the best conditions for them? Meanwhile, the vast majority of captives live in absolutely inhumane conditions.
So I think those models or those who good looking, those look like Western people may perform in the studio. They call it studio. But those workers, those Asian are working in a very low level.
Despite all the perfect promises, Medina started having doubts.
And why can't this work be done in a normal country instead of having to take people to Myanmar for such a simple job? The most insidious thought that stuck in my head was, well, if there's nothing illegal about this work, why should it be conducted this way? Well, why these particular locations? Why a Chinese crypto company? Overall, yes, there were many questions, and when I stopped responding, I'd get messages like, so what have you decided? Or, well, have you made up your mind? Basically, they weren't attacking me, but pressuring me with questions about whether I was ready to start working.
Here's what happens after someone agrees to take the job. Dasha was supposed to fly to Dubai, but conditions changed once she left home.
I arrive in Thailand, and from there they transport me using various vehicles, cars, scooters, mopeds and boats to cross the border from Thailand to Myanmar. This whole journey takes several days. Obviously, they keep changing vehicles to cover their tracks, making it impossible to trace the route in the end.
Якобы дружественную атмосферу, но на самом деле просто, чтобы я не бунтовала.
Flying to Myanmar is putting it very mildly. To reach the scam center, new recruits are smuggled across borders by indirect routes.
I arrive in Thailand. From there, they transport me using various vehicles, cars, scooters, mopeds, and boat to cross the border from Thailand to Myanmar.
Чтобы границу пересечь из Таиланда в Мьянму.
And this all takes several days. Obviously, to cover their tracks, they constantly changed vehicles, so I couldn't be traced in the end.
Such a strange route would alarm anyone, but by then it's too late to do anything. Plus, Dasha had never been abroad and only seen Thailand in online stories. She couldn't tell what was normal or not. She had nothing to compare it to.
When I arrived at the location, there was a building surrounded by wire that looked like a prison. We lived in terrible conditions. It wasn't a hotel, obviously. What are we talking about? It was just a room with nothing in it. There was just a hard bed with nothing on it. No closet, nothing. The main goal was to lure people in. As soon as I arrived, they made sure we couldn't escape.
There are many scam centers, and not all look obviously suspicious. Often they're just like actual prisons. And that's exactly the kind of center our heroine ended up in.
Guards with weapons treated us like animals. There were actual animals in cages too, being abused and fed like animals. On the first floor was a filthy dining hall. It was unbearable to be there. The whole place reeked of waste everywhere. We lived in these inhuman conditions, and it was horrific.
Nevertheless, Dasha gets a whole room to herself, which is actually quite nice. Just imagine the situation. A young, beautiful blonde with European looks in a scam center where most of the men are Asian guys and thugs.
I lived slightly better than the other Chinese slaves. They all lived on the first 2 floors of the building. It was a 4-story building where I stayed. I lived on the 4th floor with the people who ran everything. Not with the very top people, but with the leaders. They had a hierarchy. And there are about 100 people who type and talk on the phone, their correspondence, I mean. Sometimes less, sometimes more. On different days, they'd come to my office, asking me to record voice files, make video calls, or play along with their schemes. Well, that's how it was. And there were several bosses, in my opinion. One was in our building, and his friend was in the neighboring building. They also had higher-ups whom I never met or knew about. But there were many of them. It's a large hierarchy of companies. The company I work for isn't considered very large. There are even bigger companies with 8-story buildings, taller ones with maybe 2 models per building.
In each such center or park, as they call them, the hierarchy is extremely rigid. Communication with each victim at different stages is handled by 2 or even 3 people, and that's not counting the models. They perform an important but ultimately the easiest function. The initial search and first conversation are conducted by Asians and Africans.
200 social media accounts each month, and you have to find 3 potential clients, those who will potentially invest, or you can easily cheat from them. Then you send these 3 potential people to the next level, supervisor or something like that. So they will do some next step.
Those doing the lowest work live in the worst conditions here. The workday can be 15 or 17 hours, and they sleep right next to their workplaces. Models like Dasha seem higher in the chain, but the boss didn't care about her working hours.
Generally, the workday was never ending. They might set a framework of 12 to 16 hours of work. But if they needed me at night to record something or call someone, they'd do it. They did do it. They'd wake me up even during my hour break. Basically, it was pointless to try to negotiate anything. They only cared about money and that I did what they needed. And in the end, there was no real rest at all.
The system works like this. If you exceed the monthly plan by more than 5%, they raise your targets for the next 3 months. Workers push themselves trying to repeat their success, but can't reach the new targets. And if they manage to hit the plan a second month, forget it. You won't meet targets for years, except maybe in December. Hello to all the salespeople out there. But unlike normal jobs where you just miss a bonus, here they'll imprison and torture you.
They're put into dark rooms, they're beaten daily, they might be left in the jail for several weeks, they're not given food for many, many days or water. Perhaps if they ask during that time for water, one of the soldiers will urinate in a cup and make them drink it. There's no other form of sustenance that they're given. They're just beaten, they're tasered, they use electric shock, often daily for most of the victims in their scam centers. If I think of some stories, we've actually had fatalities from inside the scam centers where people have been killed because of not agreeing to work, refusing to go to work. Many of the people that we've had rescued from the scam centers have lifelong injuries now, disabilities due to it, because the abuse was so severe and they had no medical treatment afterwards. Many of their injuries actually become lifelong. I remember one young man just recently who was abused so badly they had severed the sciatic nerve down his legs and in his spine. He no longer could walk or function properly.
I work simply to avoid any punishment consequences. I know they have full power. They could send me to prison on my birthday just like that if we argued. They can do whatever they want, so you need to find common ground with them.
The prison case is quite telling. They can literally do whatever they want. But with Dasha, the guards just wanted to scare her a bit so she wouldn't cause trouble. Overall, according to Dasha herself, she received her promised salary for the first month.
The first month they paid me $5,000, but the second month they started making deductions from my salary and causing trouble. Eventually I realized they had no intention of paying me at all. They wanted me to work for free, basically in slavery. It wasn't a contract for 6 months or a year as we agreed. They wanted to keep me there forever.
She was also given some money in the following month. And interestingly, there are places to spend it.
When I did get money, it all went to the beauty salon. I go once a month just to maintain appearances and look presentable. I could drive to where I initially had a driver.
На машине можно доехать до туда.
But after we started arguing, they took that away too. No more driver.
Ругаться, они такие, все, нету водителя.
Wait, what driver, what salaries, and what beauty salon are we talking about? Hello, we're literally in slavery here. Seriously. But in today's reality, a scam center is essentially a business model, a developed infrastructure in one location. It has everything needed to function: shops, taxi services, salons, medical stations. Unbelievable, and it doesn't even look criminal.
Or like they're running their business. They try to organize the business. They try to organize all the office very well. But again, their business a crime. It's a crime against a cross-national crime.
Industry to make it look like people that are happy to scam, we call career scammers, could find themselves to go there and essentially live a relatively okay life, going to work during the work hours and off their time off. They'll, they have counterfeit Starbucks and themselves to put their money that they've made back into the centres. So essentially, very overpriced industries are in there for them to be able to regain the profits that they've given out.
The thing is, they create an alternative reality for slaves within their compounds.
If you forget the fact that there is a wall surrounding the entire city, because if you're within those streets, you're not actually looking at the wall itself. You can almost start to imagine that where you are is a utopia, or where you are is a livable kind of environment, livable city. That ideal is set up for those victims to confuse them, to allow them to almost believe that where they are is where they belong now, and there's no way out. It's incredibly well planned and well thought out. There's a lot of psychological profiling that's gone into it to really both take control of these citizens by removing all their human rights, then giving them this very basic kind of subsistence living, or this very basic type of living, and then increasing that to allow them to feel like there's no reality outside of where they live in this bubble.
So people are living in a parallel reality. Finances are circulating back to employers. And now we come to the main question: who's actually receiving all this money? Who's building this business model with slavery at its core? It's believed that this entire network of scam centers is run by Chinese criminal organizations. And here a question arises: why specifically the Chinese? It's all about the casino attention. Generally, casinos are banned in East Asian countries, but so-called special economic zones often exist at borders where gambling is allowed. In 2013, Xi Jinping announced a major investment program called One Belt, One Road. In brief, it involved investment cooperation in other countries to integrate China's economy into the global market. And Myanmar became one of these destinations. Within a couple years, mini-cities, hotels, entertainment complexes and casinos appeared in the border state near Thailand. One such city is called Shui Koko. Everything worked for a while, but COVID changed everything and people stopped visiting the casinos. The question was, what to do with all this built infrastructure? That's when some Chinese entrepreneur had the brilliant idea of creating a scam center. The location was perfect. All money stolen from victims could be quickly laundered through these casinos. Plus, there's no government authority here. Power lies with local ethnic gangs who take a cut from anyone operating in their territory. Human trafficking, organ trading, drug dealing. Basically, everything is possible. The key is just to negotiate with the local groups.
Some of these scam centers have very good functioning hospitals inside of them. If it's not for the actual workers because they're not allowed to seek medical assistance, what would they have operating theatres for? What would they have, pre-op and post-op procedures, as well as doctors that have been brought in as victims of human trafficking, mostly Chinese doctors, are there to perform what? And so there's been much discussion around organ harvesting and whether there is transport of organs. There hasn't been a lot of evidence that has ever gone out However, we have had evidence of people having had surgeries inside. I remember a young man that was from Africa. Now, he said he bought his freedom by donating his kidney.
And that's how Shui Coco becomes a massive scam operation. The main beneficiaries are the big businessmen who initially invested in the casino. Everyone knows what's going on, so why not shut down this entire network of scam centers in the Golden Triangle with one operation? Ultimately, it all comes down to corruption. Despite this, government authorities still occasionally raid these areas to free people from slavery.
When they gather sufficient data, they prepare a joint operation. Several government agencies coordinate a joint operation and enter these territories, essentially conducting an armed invasion. During such a joint raid, they attempt to free all company employees. Take China as an example again. This year, one such raid resulted in over 7,000 people being rescued, but they were all Chinese citizens.
Otherwise, escaping from such slavery is practically impossible. Though wait, there's still a chance for ransom, but it's like playing the lottery. It all depends on which local group controls the territory where the scam center is located.
So the scam centers along the border of Thailand are really governed by two separate militia groups, one being the BGF, the Border Guard Force, and one being the DKBA, the Democratic Korean Benevolent Army Group. Those two operate their scam centers extremely different. So where the BGF have quite a good kind of working relationship with their HR departments, somebody could perhaps go to their bosses and ask to leave, and they would pay somewhere between $1,000 and say $5,000 for them to be released. Now, that is not everybody. Obviously, if they're refusing to work, they're low-income workers, they're unable to function in the scamming process, they're allowed to leave. If you are a good worker or very well spoken in English, or they act as models, it's much harder to go. And of course, they're basically told if they try to leave, they'll be beaten, or and then their ransoms would be much, much larger, 10, 20, 30,000 US dollars. In the DKBA zone, it's almost impossible. There really is no way of negotiating a release. Very, very large numbers, very high rants.
Our heroine Dasha got lucky. One of the guards fell in love with her, and he's actually the one who helped her escape after 6 months.
He took me to a dorm where I was basically sold to another place to work.
Другое место, чтобы я там работала. Я не знаю.
I don't know how they arranged it or what they agreed on. For several weeks, nobody bothered me or called me to work. Maybe he made a deal with someone so I could rest there for a while before starting work. And during that time, I managed to escape.
It seems everyone there dreams of escaping at any cost. But what if I told you some people actually like being in these scam centers? And they consider it a pretty decent job. For instance, people from poor African countries or from Myanmar.
Work in that because of the social instability, poverty, low education. So they basically voluntarily work in that compound. So the salary is, compared with their daily life, is a bit better. For example, the majority of young generation who have been persuaded to work into that scam center are those Burmese.
Burmese are the people of Myanmar. For them, phone scamming doesn't seem like a big deal. Because since 2021, the country has been in a civil war that started after a military coup.
The long fighting have been put the country in turmoil, and the plunge of economy and the high rate of unemployment situation. So many have been willingly work on that. But people see that this is not the victims because you are willing to work. But again, back to the situation, the condition that forced them into the situation, the instability of the society.
The only way to stop this completely is to imprison the main beneficiaries. And in fact, sometimes things like this quietly happen. On September 29th, China sentenced the Ming criminal clan. 11 people received the death penalty, friends. Others got life sentences or long terms from 5 to 24 years. They controlled a network of underground casinos and scam centers in Myanmar. It's proven that prostitution and drug trafficking flourished with their help. And those who tried to escape from slavery were killed. The total cash flow from their activities amounts to $14 billion.
Это если в рублях немного больше триллиона, то есть
Even small scam centers generate millions of dollars every month.
миллионы долларов.
All this preys on the trust of ordinary people deceived on social media. Honestly, I doubt anything will change in the near future.
Unfortunately, this industry is now the most profitable industry in the world. They've gone from zero to being $1 trillion industry basically overnight. It's unheard of. And that money really rules.
In this region, income levels are so high that criminals aren't even afraid of the death penalty for their activities.
За ту деятельность, которую они осуществляют.
We'll see in the news again how they conduct operations to free slaves and destroy these centers. But we need to understand that individual raids won't solve the problem. Scam centers relocate, move people to new locations, hide them, and build new facilities. This isn't a problem for them. They'll only truly cease to exist when scamming stops being profitable. That is, when people stop falling for these scams. But for now, this is how it is.